Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Manic Energy. I'm Ryan Swore, joined with Katie Brooks and by Joshua Krick with Lake Superior Consulting. Josh is a program manager over Lake Superior Consulting's utility locate department. I'm Ryan Swore, and this is Manic Energy, a podcast that dives into the fast-moving world of energy, business, and the people powering it all. From bold ideas to real-world innovation, we're talking breakthroughs, market moves, and the community shaping what's next. Whether you're building for the future or just here for the fun, welcome to the chaos. So Josh, thanks for joining us in the studio today. Love having you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, are you nervous? You excited?
Not nervous. No, excited. I mean, I know we've been talking about this for a while, about setting it up. And when y'all reached out to me, I was like, yeah, let's do it tomorrow. And then we've had all this stuff going on with our business and kind of pushed it out. And y'all reached out to me. And today is my birthday and was like, hey, how about today?
Well,
and I was
happy
like,
birthday. I didn't know that.
It's a good birthday present.
You waited to drop that on us live. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
No, is this where we sing? Are we supposed to?
No,
We're not going to do it.
Happy.
No, I can't. You don't do it. No. Well, congratulations on making it another year.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. It gets rougher every year, but I'm getting better each year.
Harder on the mind, harder on the body.
Yeah.
So I think as is customary, maybe just give our viewers and listeners some info on your background. Who are you? Where you come from?
Sure. Yeah. So let's see. I've got a lot of experience, but I'll get rid of kind of some of the boring stuff. I worked a ton of jobs out of high school. I thought to myself when I get out of high school, I was like, well, you got to go to college, right? You got to get a degree. You can't be successful without a degree. So I tried that. Went to college. Psychology was my major. I made it like 3/4 of a semester. And I was like, okay, learning's not for me. So what am I going to do? So I ran through a ton of different jobs. Finally landed on the career that I'm in now, which is locating. At the time when I started, it wasn't locating specific. I was actually working at a gas company in Ohio, and we were mapping their distribution lines. So
maybe just give it an understanding of what locating is, if somebody out there doesn't know.
Sure. So utility locating is, I always explain it as your mom wants to plant a flower in the front yard, or the state wants to redo 100 miles of a highway. Everyone is required to call in 811. They got to call in a ticket, define what their scope of work's going to be, what kind of tools they're going to use, what their time frame is to do that work. When they call that in, then those tickets are distributed to all the different facility owners that are within that designated area. And then us locators come out. We identify what you're going to do, where you're going to do it. We figure out what of ours is in the way, and then we hook up, locate it, take pictures of it, and then you're good to go. You can start digging. So
for the average person, this is like the lath or the staking or sometimes spray paint that you see when there's going to be activity.
Yeah. And now this year, it's all digital. So now, your mom or the state doesn't even have to put out the white flags designating where they're going to be working. Now they can use digital white marking.
Is that true in every state, or is that just a Minnesota thing this year?
I know it's true here, and I think it's probably been messed with in other states, but I'm not sure nationwide if it's the case. So.
All right. Well, thank you. So you're working for a gas company doing mapping their assets, you said.
Yeah.
And where from there?
Yeah. So from there, I did that for a couple years and had an ungraceful fall out of that role, as most of us have at some point in our career, and thought, I don't want to do that. It's cold out and whatever. So took a little hiatus, and one of my buddies that I worked with at that company at the time was like, "Hey, man, I'm working at this company that does the locating part of it, not just the mapping." And at that time, that company had taken over a very large contract, nationwide contract. And they're not prepared, and they're struggling, and they're paying tons of money to have people come over that have experience to do work for them. And I'm like, okay, well, how much? They're like, oh, well, whatever, $2,000 bonus or whatever to come on. I'm like, all right, cool, yeah, I'll do it. So I started with them there, and that was back in Ohio when I was doing that. And this is always the beginning of my story of ending up here and being here. Is they were like, hey, we need people that are going to travel to other states. And I was like, cool, I love traveling. Per diem's cool, overtime's cool. And they're like, what do you think about, I believe at the time it was, we need people in New York and we need people in Minnesota. And I'm like, well, New York is too busy and it seems scary. And I'm like, okay, Minnesota, Kevin Durant, the Timberwolves, corn. I'm like, all right, that sounds more like my pace. I'm like, so I'll go there. So they said 2 weeks. We were there for 2 weeks. And I'm like, cool. Drove out. 2 weeks went by. 4 weeks went by. 4 months went by. All of a sudden, it's 9 months later, and I'm still here. And I always tell everyone, I called my mom that first week I was here and said, Mom, it's beautiful out here. I'm like, I don't know why I didn't know more about this state. And something about being here, it just feels like home. So she always tells people that I had made up my mind the first week I came here. And truly I did. And I've been here ever since.
So how long did you work for that company doing that? Well, you said 9 months. So then did you move here and keep doing that job instead of just being here temporarily?
Well, there's a really funny story about that.
Oh, I can't wait.
So 9 months hits and the company says, well, we need people to be here, not just travel, right? I'm like, well, I love being here. So if there's a position open, absolutely, I'll stay here. And they're like, cool, stay here. So I'm like, all right, well, I got to go home, get my stuff, come out. So I go back, get all my stuff, come back. I'd say probably within 2 weeks of that, it was a rug pull and they lost their contracts.
Oh, no.
Oh.
So they lost their contracts. It went back to another large company that had it before.
Does the funny part come later? That's not funny.
To me, it's funny, but
that's good. It's good you think of
it's
it that
funny
way.
now because I realize that if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be where I'm at. So,
Well said.
So what ended up happening is the company who took the contract, they're like, hey, we'd love to have all you guys who've been working on this. Why don't you come work here? And I'm like, all right, sure. Why not? So,
So you did the same thing, but for the company who had the new company who had the contract.
Yeah. Same work, different area. I moved to a different area. So
Still in Minnesota?
yeah,
Okay.
still in Minnesota. And so I was there less than a year. And that's where I get to the beginning of my story here at Lake Superior.
And how long ago was that now?
This year is 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so what have you done for LSC? I mean, maybe I can take over and give some background about, from my perspective on what we were trying to do. And I'd love to hear your take on that because we haven't discussed it.
Yeah.
Good thing we saved it for here live for everybody else to hear. But so we were a business that is really cyclical. And not just cyclical in the seasons, but also from a travel perspective. So we have individuals who, and we've talked about it on the show, where they'll travel the nation. They'll be gone for sometimes weeks or even months on end, and then they come home and, people are everything we do. We don't have a product as a business. And so when they're home for a couple of weeks, there's not a lot of billable or things they can do to generate revenue, but there's still the cost. So it's like, you get these cycles of profit and loss and profit and loss. And, we had an idea about, hey, listen, we can grow our team, which is something we needed to do, to lessen the travel burden. And we can cross-train these individuals because we have used some of the same equipment you use, not entirely, but close. And we can start to do utility locates. We can try and get a contract and do utility locates close to home, which would keep people home to be able to see their families. It might improve our retention, which sounds great on the surface, right? Where you're like, oh, that's a great idea. So we might be able to hire 20% more staff to staff this and the thing we normally do. And then we can have a better rotational program so that people get to be home more often when they want to be. And we can, be more profitable more often. Well, it didn't quite work out that way because what we found was, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, would that be typical in the industry to pair our core services with utility locate? Is there anyone else that does that?
Probably not.
Probably not.
I mean,
Okay.
I had no idea.
Innovators.
We're
Okay.
innovators.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Okay.
I mean, adult people usually fall into something on accident or by accident, right? So it was a conscious business choice to try and, improve our profile as a business, improve our ability to keep our people home more often, improve retention, possibly even, increase pay as we're bringing in more revenue. So, I mean, all the reasons were right. And we thought, well, we can just learn whatever kind of new skills we need to have. We found out though pretty quickly that, there's a lifetime of learning. You can have to be efficient and effective at this. And the cross utilization of resources doesn't really work because you get tickets in.
Yeah.
Those tickets come in, you got to be there. You have so much time, right?
Yeah.
And so we need to make some hires. And Josh, I think you might have been the second person or first person we hired.
Well, you had someone that was running it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we had somebody running it that we had hired, and so he was the first, or you were the first doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, what did you arrive to find?
Well, I was sold the vision before I even came. I was a veteran in the industry at that point, and I had seen the industry. And I'd understood what the working conditions were, what the vision was at other companies. So I was working for another company, and I was approached by the person that brought me. And I was sold the vision. This is, and I was sold the vision after the conversation. So we talked about what's going on in the industry. Where is it going? How is it ran? How do we think how it works? And I was sold that vision before he even said, "Hey, man, I've started something here, and we're looking to grow in that direction of locating." And so I knew before I even came in, I'm like, I can see that here's an opportunity to make a difference.
So what were the things then? So you say how the industry is ran and how it works, and then the vision here sounds like maybe different.
Well, and to go back to what you asked about, like, what did I see when I got in? The vision aligned with what I felt the company's vision was for it, in the sense of, hey, the importance is people. The importance, like, culture is the number one thing. Like, we gotta, these are all building block things, and these are all things that were not building block things in the industry.
But the other companies you'd worked with,
perceived from a locator standpoint, the industry, it felt like we were numbers, and we felt like kind of pigs to the slaughter. They come in, maybe they'll work, maybe they won't. If they don't, shoo them out. And I kind of foreseen that coming before I even came here through those conversations when I came in, and I got to sit in on a lot of sit downs with, I know you led a lot of that, just discussing vision and discussing culture and visioning where we wanted to go and what we wanted to do and what it was going to take to get there. So that all aligned as I was coming in, and the players weren't all there, and everything, it was new.
Processes, resources.
Exactly. Yeah. But when you come in knowing, and I like to think anybody in that same position would see what was starting to happen here. Maybe it was just a me thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But when I came in and seen that, I thought, this is going to go somewhere. And rarely do you have an opportunity to be that first person hired in.
And I didn't know you very well at the time when you took over leading this group. But we were having some challenges. But in retrospect, any business that's new is going to have seemingly insurmountable challenges in the first 5 years, first half decade. Like, that happens. And I don't think I was prepared well enough for that personally. And when we were meeting some difficulty, there was a leader that came in, Mark, that we had transitioned. Mark was coming in, and and I'll just be fully transparent, but I didn't really know you well yet.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think we need to get out of this. It's not working. The vision around coming into it was, we want to do this with integrity. We want to be culture first, but we also want to improve using that cross utilization of the resources. That wasn't working very well. And then we had a lot of, to me, some examples or evidence that we weren't being culture first. At least it felt like to me there were some examples of, it felt like to me treating people like numbers.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's evidenced by everybody's working 100-hour weeks. I mean, the 100-hour week was not uncommon for most people in the team.
Yeah.
But that's really attributable to a new business growing and not knowing how to do what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And the reason I go to this level of detail is because when we made some transitions, I was ready personally to exit. I was like, we should
and that's not new here.
We should probably just,
I don't know
how we're going to do
Yeah.
this. And Mark and Carrie Hill, it convinced me. They're like, listen, you got to give, maybe it wasn't Carrie, I think it was Mark.
Yeah.
And
Michael.
Michael.
Maybe.
Yeah, Michael Berg. Said like, no, we got to give this a shot. This Josh guy really gets it. You need to give him a chance. I said, all right, well, you're there to lead it. And it was just like, all right, now things started to roll in the right direction. And I don't think we've looked back since. You certainly haven't.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just misinterpreting some of the early days, but I just am trying to give you credit for coming in because leadership to me is really important. I think you lead with the right stuff.
Yeah. Well, no, and it wasn't graceful.
Yeah.
I have no problem, and anyone that works for me and anyone that knows what we've gone through knows that, and honestly, what the industry knows us and myself as is that we're not afraid to, this doesn't work. Like, what better way to figure out what does work than to understand what doesn't work? And we did a lot of not working at the start, which was very, very evident by some of our metrics. And, a lot of it too was just tires screeching, trying to find, we had a lot of different organizational changes that happened during that time. And, we were switching from being owned this way to being owned this way and making sure that we fit in that, transitionary period. And again, it's just like when I say the story of how I got here was funny, I look at that too. And I don't look at that as a negative thing. Like, those were all the building block moments for us to propel us. And one of the biggest things that I always, we're bringing on new leaders now, and that I always tell leaders is, let's celebrate the wins, but let's lean into the losses, because that's where you find the most that you can take out of that when it comes to learning. Celebrating wins is great, and we like to celebrate wins, but when something goes wrong, let's take even more time to sit down and go, okay, it went wrong. Going wrong isn't bad. Going wrong is an opportunity to figure out what you did and not do it again.
Love it.
And that's just how we've
right.
got to where we're at today. We made a lot of wrongs, and now we're growing to a point where we can move forward with the wins.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And I'll tell another story that to me, almost makes me emotional thinking about it. Like, just so meaningful. And I think it's important to maybe cover that last thing I said about, is this going to work, with a moment where everything parted and made so much sense. So I was down at a holiday party. We have annual holiday parties and invite employees, and people come in from out of town. I was in, I believe we were in Roseville or in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I was sitting down. I walked in and I saw a table of people I didn't know. Nobody I'd ever really met. And it was a team of our utility locate group. And I sat down and ate dinner with them, and we were talking and sharing stuff. And sort of towards maybe middle of the end, I'd said to the group, like, hey, thanks for everything you do. I really appreciate everything you guys do, because you guys are working pretty dang hard. And the spouse of one of our employees looks at me and says, oh no, thank you. And I was like, kind of like, for what? And she says, well, thank you. It's because of Lake Superior Consulting that I have my husband back. And I'm like a little floored by that. I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, he's been in this business for a very long time, and he wasn't himself because he come home and he hated his job. He was very angry. He was crabby, frustrated. And ever since he's joined LSE, he's himself again, and he comes home happy, works just as much as he ever did. But now he's a different human.
Yeah.
He's back to where he was. And I'm like, I was floored. I'm like, nobody has ever probably said something more meaningful from a business perspective to me than just that. And I was like, and here I am a year and a half before thinking, how do we even continue to do this? Now I'm like, I'm so energized.
Yeah.
I'm so behind this and excited, because I mean, at least for one person, it's meaningful, and that just makes it all worthwhile. And let's go through all the pain. Let's get all this done. And I mean, since then, you guys have been kicking butt. And
Well, and I think there's like two sides of that, right? Like what you experience there that's a reflection of our culture.
100%.
100%.
And in that time frame was when we were really swinging into understanding how to do it and to do it right. And the reflection of that culture was in the fact that we uptrended, right? Like, moving past that point, things started making more sense. Work was getting done right. Processes were being more understood. But that interaction there is a direct reflection of your leadership, because
I'd also say yours too, Josh.
well, yeah, but I am a direct reflection of my leadership. And I think we talked a little bit about this, and we had our spring kickoff meeting, and we made Ryan blush.
You did.
And I
had to get out of there.
Well,
You're saying too many nice things.
I was going to butt in and have my turn, and I was like, well, I'm going to be on the podcast tomorrow, so maybe I'll share mine to be forever cataloged online. And I'll just say, as a temporary locator that moved to a full-time and a lead and a supervisor and a manager, I wouldn't be at my point without having good leaders ahead of me that I could absorb what is being sent to us and what's being told to us. And, I'm on every town hall meeting, and I'm listening, and I'm looking, and I'm seeing Ryan, and Ryan's telling me what I know is true. But what's important for my guys is that I continue that message. So those guys are listening to it too. And yeah, probably a good portion of them are going, yeah, Ryan, that makes sense. That's great. But if it's not reflected from me as well, then they don't get it. So, do I fill Ryan Swar's shoes? No. But I like to think I reflect a little bit of what I've learned over the years from hearing you. So.
Yeah. I mean, the world has a funny way of working. You never know. I might be working. You'll be my boss before you know it. Keep this up.
No.
Yeah, no, I think you've got so much talent, and you've got such a great team around you. All the team members are pretty phenomenal, and how hard they're working. And I mean, to put it into perspective, what you've accomplished, and from what I saw yesterday, I think it's important to acknowledge. And now keep in mind, this will air, sometime in the future. It won't be anytime soon. But in this moment, you're sort of in a ramp up period, right? So. Last few years, the team size, just to give some perspective, was what, like 25 people on average?
Yeah, around there.
Yeah, and you took another, I want to circle back to this other thing that I think is really important, because this shows your thinking in leadership and how it's really affected things. And so 25 people, it kind of always been that, but it was probably a equal mix, maybe that's not exactly right, of full-time employees and temporary resources, because we're doing this work in Minnesota, and in the winter there's not as much of it. And so the idea was you've got a sort of a mainstay staff of full-time employees augmented by, peak shaving for a good amount of the year, like 8-9 months out of the year, temporary resources. And we weren't doing as well as we thought we could, whether it's process, engagement, quality, retention. And, I was like, hey, listen, we got to make some changes. What are you guys thinking you want to do? And what you came back with was, well, we want to move everybody to full-time. And I was like, wow, how's that going to help?
Yeah.
He said, well, it will increase our costs, but here's where it increases the value we provide to our customers and our value to live our mission and our vision statements. And I was like, I remember going into that. It was like a teams meeting. I was like, I don't see how this is going to work. Yeah. By the end of it, you had me convinced, and you and the other leaders. And I was like, all right, guys, you got this. Let's and you started doing that, right? Maybe I remember that a little bit wrong.
No, that's pretty right. And honestly, it's when I talk about the parts of the industry that don't work, it's kind of the same thing, different situations. Some of the other places in the industry, they don't like to pay their employees to drive to the work when they start their day, or drive home when they start the day. And that was something that we were like, oh no, like we got you in a company car, and you're driving our vehicle, so let's pay you while you're driving to wherever you're going. It makes sense.
Yeah, it might even be the law.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it always points back, and I'll just always say culture is a thing, right? And in that situation, it was like, okay, well, what the benefit of having a mix of seasonal and full-time is that most of your crew is going to be laid off in the off season, so, what's the point of having them full-time? Well, we were like, well, we see that our retention is better when our employees know that we believe in them and that we want them to grow their career here. So when someone applies for a seasonal role, it's not really the vibe you're giving off.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we want you to be here for a long time, but you're seasonal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there were some other reasons why we had found benefit to that,
Yep.
an increase in hourly wage. Some people, they don't have families and they don't need insurance, and, they hop around. And but I think what we ultimately boiled down to was, hey, let's look at like what's important to our people, and a career is important. So how can we prop that up? Let's make sure that they know that it's important to us, that they feel, set in a role and that they want to, grow their career. And then that evolved into all kinds of things, developing how do we make sure that our employees know that development is something that's really important to us?
Yeah.
And we're still working through that, because that's not something that you ever finish, right?
Continuous learning.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So, being a lifetime learner, I think, is really important.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing I love about your business or our business
Mm-hmm.
is that there's built-in metrics.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of businesses have to think about what are the quality metrics, what do they look like for us, and that can be difficult in a services environment.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some metrics that are built in, and I think it would be good to maybe just to discuss those a little bit, maybe help Katie and I understand them. But then also, what happened to those after you made some of those cultural changes and improvements? Was there a cause and effect that you saw?
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone that works in damage prevention, anyone that, even if you're an excavator in damage prevention, you can identify kind of, what's the core function of a locator. Accurate marks, quality marks. So the number one metric for us is damages,
And so damage would might maybe indicate that it wasn't a quality mark.
Correct. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So someone gone out and, they mismarked something, or they marked outside of tolerance, and which then led to someone who's excavating, being unaware of where the actual place was,
Mm-hmm.
and hitting that facility. So damages, that's one that we look at the top, because that's what we sell. We sell damage prevention. Past that, equally as important is, our timeliness. So not having late tickets. So us not getting out and locating for that ticket by its due date. Or, some companies, they have long scope projects where they're doing a project for 6 months. I've seen 5 years, and, they're on tight schedules. So they need us to be there to mark certain areas within certain timeframes. So
About how long do you have?
So if you're just doing like a one-time thing, we typically get the ticket and it's due 48 hours later.
Yeah, so not a lot of time to react with resources.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, 72 hours
72.
later. Yeah, they just changed that law. I'm still running on old law. And then past that, with the meet tickets, it's the same due date to be there for the initial meet. But one of the big things with that is once you do the initial meet and you get on that schedule, it's not a cookie cutter schedule. So our locators are reaching out to the contractors, talking through, what are you working on? Where are you going? How much do you need marked? And then in what time frame do you need that marked? So making sure that we're staying in step with those guys as well, to make sure that, they're not getting too far ahead, or basically doing whatever we can to try to prevent damages. So
now you're getting into timeliness,
Mhm.
customer service,
Mhm.
responsiveness. Yeah, you definitely will get benefits from somebody who's more engaged, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah. And what are the changes that we made to kind of push that?
So you made some changes, like we talked about the staff makeup. I think you started to implement some process and leadership.
Mhm.
You actually promoted people too. That was
Yeah.
the other thing I missed,
Yeah.
right? It wasn't just bringing people from a good part of the staff from temporary to full time.
Mm-hmm.
You also made a lot of promotions, and you're like, well, we're going to promote and pay people more, and that'll help us make more money. And I was like, well, we're not charging more money. How do we make more money? But
Yeah.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So, and to make a long story short, I was in a lead locator role before moving into more of a supervisory role. And this is at the beginning stages where we were really trying to figure out who we are and how we do our process. And there was about a year where I was supervising all of those employees. And I think at the time it was about 20 employees, maybe 25 employees. And if Mark Cato was here, he would tell you this funny story about how he was always beating me over the head about, you have to stop doing and you have to start leading. Because I would be out there with my locator. Oh, there's a fire here, there's a fire there, running and trying to do all the locates myself. And that was a pivotal part, and a part, I think, for culture where you have to be able to give people the room to grow into roles that are going to impact the business. And we had one supervisor and 20 locators. And it was like, okay, well, first of all, I can't have that many direct reports. That's a lot of people to try to, make sure I'm clearly communicating with and, clearly setting up for success and giving them developmental goals. Like, where are you going to develop into? My role?
Yeah.
So we had a lot of conversations about, what would that look like? And we decided to split our group down the middle, have 2 supervisors. And at that time it was really good because we were able to set kind of, what is a supervisor? What are they doing day to day? We added lead roles underneath that, which we already had, but 2 lead locators under a supervisor, 3 to 4 techs under those lead locators. And what we're doing is we're building, maybe redundancy is the right word. Consistency. Yeah, sure. But basically just pathways for
just kind of checks and balances too, right?
Yeah. Well, and you can't just have one person leading the charge and being the one to set all those things and being the one to come to. So we wanted to give additional people, the ability and clear clear expectation about, hey, this is the role that you play. You're going to support these locators.
So there's oftentimes you have people at all times almost on 24-hour or on they're on call too, right?
Yeah.
And that's my first experience in a business that was like that on a consistent and predictable basis. So did promoting those leads kind of give some more opportunities for not always being on like one person's shoulders? Did that help that at all? I've never asked you that. I was curious.
Yeah. No, I mean, it, giving them all kind of that career progression and kind of setting that, hey, these are the people roles that we have that are open. Maybe you're a people leader, maybe you're a technical leader. What is it that makes you tick? Where do you want to go? And at the same time, kind of setting up those lines of communication so that, people were, the locators were having someone that they can go to and it wasn't going to be someone who was having everyone come to them. Mm-hmm.
So you got foundational changes to organizational structure. You got process improvement, communication channels. Mm-hmm. Did that have, what kind of effect did that then have on those metrics? I'm assuming a positive one, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we I think further developing that structure, just off the rip, we saw positive movements, but from there we built on more. Then we had auditors that were just auditing. Supervisors aren't auditing; auditors are auditing. We want them focused on that. So that's quality.
So that means that they're going to go behind somebody that did the work and check on their work.
Yep. They're going to be the driver for that to make sure that, we're delivering the most important thing, that's quality. Past that, trainers, dedicated trainers. Uh-huh. Gone is the day that the manager is in the office 3 weeks a month trying to train and trying to manage. Setting clear, this is your role. This is what you focus on. Training's important. Getting those trainers with the auditors. The auditors are sharing information with the trainers. And then it just, every little step we made pushed the needle even more. To the point where, we had record-breaking years for for the amount of damages that were in our area. Our customer told us, and our customers don't like to share those kind of things. Hey, we've never seen a company have that little damages in that area. So it's a very proud moment for me.
Oh, kudos. It should be. I mean, that's all the things. That's like taking a business, having a vision, taking a business, making investments in the right places, hitting pay dirt and feeling really good about it. There's nothing like that customer that comes back to you and says, hey, you did a great job.
Yeah.
And we appreciate you. And so that led to, and probably the best form of thank you is growth and more opportunities. So,
yeah.
We kind of referenced it a bit ago, but we talked about being at the kickoff meeting. There's so many new faces and everybody was paying attention and looked. I mean, what did you just recently go through the last couple months here?
Yeah. So our area that we had for the last 5 years was, like we were talking earlier, maybe 25 employees, pretty big geographical area, but it was very wide, very wide from side to side. So we just recently bid on 2 additional regions that are similar in the amount of work per year, but smaller in size. So effectively, we've tripled.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But you didn't have a lot of notice. You had to hire like what?
Yeah.
55 people or 50 people. And
I think we really need to take a moment and stop and recognize the people that
100%.
that did that, because our HR team, we went into this whole process going, I'm very confident that if you put a room of locators in front of me, that I can get them on track. I've done it. But getting those locators in a room in this short of a time frame, everyone was looking at it going, there's no way we can do this. And our HR team, and Jamie, Amanda, I don't think I'm missing any. Jesse. Yeah, Jesse now. Everyone just pitched right in. And, within the first 30 days, we had more than half of
you
those
mean Kevin
people.
too, right?
Kevin. I mean, honestly, and maybe we can take 100 steps back here and say, all of these great things we're talking about, all of the success we have, I wish I could go through, we probably don't have enough time in this podcast to go through every single person that's with us or that may have moved on, that have been just pivotal pieces in this to get us where we're at today.
Yeah, I think you could, like all your supervisors, your
Yes.
trainers. I mean, you'd have to name
So many of
a
them.
lot of names.
Yeah. And I know all of them are watching and waiting for me to drop their names. But
Yeah, I know. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, we should say this name, that name, that name.
yeah.
But I mean, really the whole, it can be hard on a team, because when you got a team of 25 people that have been working really hard through all those challenges, and now you expand, you kind of need to do it with a combination of opportunities for existing employees and bringing in new people. And that can feel hard. Have you noticed any feelings of being left behind in that growth or anything like that?
I've had those exact words said.
Yeah.
From some people.
It can be hard.
And I think we lose sight of that, being in a position where you're kind of in that motion of doing that. So it's super important to make sure that as you're transitioning and as people who may have been like, hey, I want to move into this next role, and, they may not be ready for it. And, it's disappointing to them. And it's just so important to make sure that you're clear about, hey, this is where you're at. And so I've had those conversations, and, what we're doing now is, hey, the conversation now that we're in it and we're moving is that there's going to be more opportunities coming soon, and we need to get you prepared, because, I don't want to leave people behind, especially people that want to move up. If you want to move up, you tell me that, I'm going to get you there.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it takes 5 years to get you there. We're going to get you there.
Hard to think through critically, like what are the steps that you need to go through in development. And I've always felt like, actually, it wasn't me. Rob Unson taught me about this. Oftentimes we as leaders, and I have to like personally always kind of check myself on this. Think about existing team members differently than we do prospective team members. So with an existing person, all their you know their flaws, their strengths, their weaknesses. And then you, as a leader, usually have a vision for what you're looking for. And there's always, they'd be great at this, but there's these gaps that you might perceive. Whereas a sort of new candidate, you've got the luxury of a meeting, maybe a resume and a discussion. And sometimes you're like, it seems like they check all the boxes, but lo and behold, over time, there are some gaps there too.
Yeah.
And it can be really hard to reconcile that and really step back and say, all right, can we get this person in this role and stretch them? And is that better than taking a swing at an unknown or a relative unknown? And it's really hard to back up and think that way. So you actually have a bias, even though not you, but we as leaders have bias and we don't even know it. So
and it swings one way or the other, right?
Swings one way or the other. And all you got to do though is, like you said, I think not all you can do is lay out the path and say, here are the steps and I'm going to help you and work with you. And then you got to make good on that commitment.
Well, and be prepared that when you make the wrong choice to say, I made the wrong choice.
Yeah, I've done that a lot.
Yeah.
Well, the first part.
Yeah.
Making the wrong choice is easy.
I'd like to
Saying
think
you did is hard.
I'd like to think that at this point, I've built my career on being like the one person in the room who's like, oh yeah, I messed up. Yeah. And I'm going to acknowledge that. And this is what I'm going to do moving forward. And that's just like with anything else, and
it's really big for culture.
It is. And you already brought that up earlier, talking about, if there's a mistake made, you learn from it, you acknowledge it, and then have a takeaway.
And that's like day one stuff for our guys.
Yeah.
Is we understand that people are going to make mistakes. And I can put you through 3 months of training and put every process we have in front of you and make you sign that you understand them. You're going to mess it up. But what you do when you mess it up is what matters. Because you'll see someone out there who makes a huge mistake and goes, well, it's not my fault. This happened, this reason, that reason. But the ones that really get it are the ones you go out there and you're like, hey, this is what was messed up. And they're like, man, yeah, that's my bad. And it's like, okay, well, those are the kind of people I'm like,
what did you learn from it?
Awesome.
Yep.
You get it. And I'm like, hey, if I were to sit here and say that I've never messed up, yeah, right. Yeah.
Creating that safe space to acknowledge it and then grow from it.
Yeah. We call it psychological safety, right? And that stretches to a few other things as well. But I think that's so important. And a huge gap in our industry, the damage prevention industry, is a lot of these companies have lost sight that just because you have 100 employees that can generate this much revenue per ticket and that you have a revolving door of being able to get new ones in, it's like the reason why you never get to where you want to get is because you dehumanize, They're not just numbers. They're not just people who are generating revenue. Like, these are people with families and kids and aspirations, and they're people who you were before you got into your role, where it was your, decision of how you're setting the culture of the place you work. And that's probably true for everywhere. Maybe I don't point out the damage prevention industry alone. But super important to keep a finger on that, to keep your head on your shoulders and realize that these are people.
Doesn't matter how much you grow, as long as you keep that core sort of mantra or philosophy, you're going to take value from what you do every day. I think you're giving value too. I think it's going to be a really rewarding experience for you. And I love everything you're standing for and what you're talking about. What would success look like to you, even beyond where you're at right now? With that in mind, like, what are your aspirations? Where do you want to go? What would you like to see? Because it'd kind of be fun to check back in with you in a few years and look back at this moment and say, wow, we thought so big and, too big for our britches, or, boy, we were thinking small.
Yeah. That's a great question.
Or nailed it. You never know.
Absolutely. So I think if you had asked me this 3 years ago, I'd say as many locate contracts as I can. I want to be that guy. We want to be that company.
And what about now?
Now I would say the more opportunities I can generate for our employees to make a difference.
You're learning.
Mhm.
Yeah, there you go.
Mhm.
And we've turned down opportunities because it wasn't going to put us in a position where, it was going to be beneficial, not just for us, but for the company as a whole,
I shared in an early episode that, and it's not just me. I have to sort of pass the credit too. And my mentor, when our founder, Phil, said to me, you should never measure success by the number of people that work for you.
Mm.
I'm like, wow, you're exactly right about that. And you just said that. So
Yeah.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
So you'd like to do more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever that looks like.
We've been successful. We've had great years where we've had great metrics. And we've had great years where the revenue looks great, and we sit down and we look at that, and it's like, yeah, that's good. Like, that's important from a business perspective. That's important. But that doesn't bring me joy. Like, what brings me joy is, hey, here's this guy who was struggling when he came in, and I won't say names.
Yeah.
Here's this guy who was absolutely struggling when he came in, who left, came back, struggled, but all along I'd seen it in him. I'm like, this guy gets it. He's got the inner workings. He's just got to work through it. Just like me. I mean, just like any of us.
Mhm.
We've all been there. We've all been that guy or that gal on a job or at a business where someone looks at him and goes, I don't know if they're going to make it. But seeing that person grow into the role they're in now, that's all of it.
I agree.
And then helping them continue to grow. It's like, okay, well, we got here. Where are we going next?
Yeah, because you've reinvented yourself as well. Like if I think you said that person 3 years ago won as many contracts. Now you're talking about financial statements, and that was kind of some learning you had too, right? Like having to learn the business side of it as much as the actual locate side.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
I didn't even honestly, and I know this now looking back on it. I didn't know how to lead people. Getting into a people leading position, not the way I do now. And a lot of that is just, whether it's part self-reflection and part understanding who I am and maturing and having good people, especially in the organization who are great examples. And we've talked about all of them. You, Carrie, Mark, there's tons of other people that are all, that they just all get it. That what we're doing is it's people. So just tons of great examples and then luckily all of those great examples have tugged me along and taught me, the other important stuff,
And
financials.
now you're teaching us. I love it. Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. You'll see. You are. I get a lot of inspiration right in return from you and everything you're saying here. Because, we're not feeding you those words. You're coming to that conclusion all on your own. And you're like, well, it's something I heard you say and talked about. It's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. You're right. And you're applying it. And then I think applying it in even different ways in your own way. And now there's a team around you applying it in their way. And I mean, as I said, you went through a very rapid recent growth phase, and you're going to run into those challenges, and you're going to look at them as opportunities for improvement rather than as problems. And you'll have individuals who just came on board that you thought were going to work out, and they're not going to buy into your message. They're not going to believe in the mission, and they're not going to work. And you're going to meet that with energy and work through it. And we're going to be successful because the team's going to grow. And it's because you're looking for the right things, which is opportunities for the employees and our team members, and opportunities to improve what we do for our customers. Now it's about, we've talked a lot about this, matching with the customers that are going to value those things and want those things. And if that's what they want in one of their partners, then they might be a great, we might be a great ally for them.
Yeah. We didn't get to talk a whole lot about customers, but that's a good segue into that, because I love talking about our people, but equally as important are the people that we work with.
Well, and I think you found a really good customer.
Yeah.
I think you found a really good customer who values those things. And it's really important, right? Like, you hear about this, you might even read about it, but it's like, it's important that your values match, the values of others in your supply chain. And so, like, if our customers don't share that value system, which some might not, it's probably not a great fit.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I think the customer has been really, our primary one's been really both appreciative and patient and tolerant and supportive of everything we've been doing. And I'm excited that you found some really good allies on that side as well, and they're supporting us in our ability to do this. Yeah, you're right. You got to give them a shout out as well. So
Yeah. No, I mean, they, a lot of people will say they're very hard to work with. And it's like, and I'll just push back on that and say, well, isn't that what you want? Like, we're talking about damage prevention.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about playing with water balloons in the front yard. We're talking about lives and livelihood. And, we're talking about, putting the right company and the right locator on the property where, the person that lives there is on a respirator. And those lines that they're marking are the difference between that person having power or not. So yeah, I want the company that I'm working for to be making sure that we understand and that, and that have, like you said, the same values, that the stressing that and being, making those things very important. And they tell you, and I've had a lot of conversations with them about how they were like, oh yeah, we knew when you guys were coming on, it was going to be difficult. You were new, didn't have experience in contract locating, but what we saw was an opportunity for a fresh face in the industry that was going to be prepared to learn and grow into it and be an extension of our damage prevention program. And we always say the word partnership, and that's what it is. If you're not partnered with whoever you're working for, then what are you?
Yeah.
Like that's what we do. So.
Wow.
Well, final thoughts or questions from you?
No, I nothing I could think of now that I'm on the spot.
Yeah. Well, so your first podcast,
Yeah.
and was it what you thought it would be? You seem pretty, you're naturally, I knew you'd be fine, but you seemed a little nervous.
I'm running out of my script.
Yeah. Nice.
Well, it was well rehearsed then.
Yeah. You did well.
No, I always tell everyone that I can talk too much, and Mark Cato will tell you. He's told me so many times, stop talking.
Yeah.
Like, say your point and move on.
He says it with love.
He
Yeah.
does. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you being on, and I can't wait to have you back at some point in the future to see how you've evolved even in the next phase and molded into something even more phenomenal than what the team has become and what you guys have made this so far. And I think, no matter what the future brings, I think you and the rest of the team, and I'll say that comprehensively, without naming any individual names, but everybody together, you should be very proud about what you've accomplished. And I'm just excited to see it continue.
Me too.
Thanks
Agreed.
for joining.
It's been fun.
Can't wait to come back.
That's a wrap on this episode of Manic Energy, where the only constant is change. If you're fired up, do us a solid. Follow the show, leave a quick review, or send it to a friend. Got questions, ideas, or a topic you want us to dig into? Drop us a line at the link in the show description. Thanks for riding the current with us. Until next time, stay charged.